Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're recapping this week in cannabis news from June 14th to the 20th. So before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And then, of course, if you want to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. And then there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch how the industry's evolved over time, identify some top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you are ready. But we're going to start with some big news out of Connecticut, as they are set to become the 18th state to legalize adult use cannabis. And this is really big news if you've been following from 2020, because in the fall, a lot of my sources were saying, look, if New Jersey, which had the cannabis on the ballot to vote for legalization, if they pass this, then we will likely see New York and Connecticut go, which would be the East Coast. And sure enough, New Jersey did vote on the ballot yes to legalize. They did legalize, and then sure enough, in March, we had New York legalize, and now we have Connecticut. So, as sources were anticipating, we have seen the East Coast basically go. And this is big politically, because if you're in Connecticut and you don't legalize for adult use, but New Jersey and New York have, then your constituents are going to go to those states and give their tax dollars to those states as opposed to your own, so it just makes sense politically. But all of this happened as we anticipated, as we wanted, so this is big news. As Connecticut is slated to become the latest state in the U.S. to legalize, tax, and regulate cannabis for adults 21 and older. On Thursday, lawmakers passed an adult use cannabis bill, and Governor Ned Lamont said that he would sign so the state could move beyond this terrible period of incarceration and injustice. The war on cannabis, which was at its core a war on people in black and brown communities, not only caused injustices and increased disparities in our state, it did little to protect public health and safety, Governor Lamont said in a statement. It will help eliminate the dangerous, unregulated market and support a new growing sector of our economy, which will create jobs. Yes, jobs, and that's what people need right now, so that's good. The new law legalizes possession and cultivation of cannabis for adults 21 and older. It will also expunge low-level criminal records related to cannabis. Most of the tax revenue generated from adult use sales will go to communities disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition, and half of the state's adult use licenses will be issued to social equity applicants, a provision that New York State incorporated into its law in March. And if they are focusing on social equity like New York, they're going to need some financial structure put in place, which is why we can hopefully rely on SAFE to come sooner than later. Connecticut legalized medical cannabis in 2014, and the country's largest cannabis companies, including Curaleaf, Green Thumb Industries, and Trulieve, all have footprints in the state. According to a report Cowen published in April, Connecticut's cannabis market is expected to grow from $143 million in sales in 2020 to $164 million by the end of this year. So that's for medical alone, and that is also a state, Connecticut, with just 3 million people. Governor Lamont has said that adult use sales will launch in May 2020. Analysis by cannabis trade publication MJ Biz Daily projects that the Connecticut market could reach $725 million in annual sales by the end of 2025 with combined medical and adult use. So that is great news, and this comes from John Craven, who is a political reporter, just highlighting that possession will be legal on July 1st in Connecticut, and retail sales projected to begin next May, with social equity applicants getting priority for license. And just 2 days ago, the bill was on life support because it didn't have that social equity part included in it, so that was a big deal in getting that done, ensuring that Governor Ned Lamont would sign it, and regardless, that got done. He is going to sign it, so that is great news out of Connecticut for the cannabis industry. And this is from Boris Jordan, chairman of Curaleaf. Hey everyone, very positive meeting this week in DC for our industry. There is tremendous support from congressional leadership to pass legislation during this legislative session. I think we will get there. And when they say legislation, they mean one piece. It's likely going to be SAFE as opposed to the comprehensive bill, and we're going to find out more about that and why. But we are told that Booker, Schumer, and Wyden bill introduction, that is the holistic cannabis legalization bill, will be introduced in July at some point. Now, obviously, they said it would be by the end of May, then it'd be in June. Now, it's going to be in July, but obviously this bill is a lot of work, and probably the fact that they couldn't get the votes is causing some delays. Curaleaf is fully committed to help Leader Schumer pass this important legislation to move our industry and our country forward. In addition, we heard there's tremendous bipartisan support for safe banking and 280E reform legislation that is desperately needed and will provide access to capital and tax relief for social equity operators and our industry. So this is again highlighting why for social equity aspects, we need SAFE. We need the financial infrastructure in place. And it seems like this is telling us that SAFE is going to go before the comprehensive legalization bill. And it's likely that the comprehensive legalization bill will be used as a tool in 2020 for re-election by the Dems. Bottom line, we all need to support Leader Schumer in passing his proposal to address the federal-state conflict finally. But this is, gotta love Twitter for giving us access to these important people running these companies, or these intelligent businessmen that have lots of experience and do a lot of this work behind closed doors that we don't see. So thank you, Boris, for that update. Then on to Todd, highlighting off of what Boris said, as this aligns precisely with what we've heard. So obviously we were expecting a lot coming into the year. Things have changed because this is not static. There's a lot of moving parts. And so as of right now, where we sit today, the draft of comprehensive bill should be dropped in July, with SAFE attached to must-pass legislation in September or October. Now, there was word that SAFE could be attached to July 4th budget reconciliation bill. Be great if it does, but if it doesn't, it's likely going to be passed in something September or October. And then this is something to highlight where, I didn't get it myself, I got it from Todd, but because state level social justice needs functional banking. They will need safe banking to pass in order for that, and it seems like the legislative or the comprehensive legalization bill will be the focus for 2022. Fluid, it's subject to change, but as of now, this seems to be where we're at. So as much as I want to try and give you fresh updates and at least say, hey everyone, this is where we seem to be, the comprehensive bill will be moved into 2022. It'll be introduced. There's just not going to be any voter action on it, just like when SAFE was introduced, there hasn't been any voter action on it yet, or since then. Regardless, though, it seems like SAFE is going to get passed in the second half of this year at some point, and then we'll have that comprehensive bill for 2022, which honestly just is more incrementalism and delays the whole, big kaboom legalization, which is great for us investors in the long run. So stay patient. I think this is all great news. Another update, this guy Mark Ellie is just some guy on Twitter, but I just wanted to bring this out. Breaking news, Dan Aarons, who I've featured on this channel a few times, portfolio manager of MSOs ETF, just stated during a webinar with Ben Kovler, CEO of Greentham Industries, that very credible sources told him the board of the TSX are having a vote to allow MSOs to list on their exchange. As always, time in the market beats trying to time the market. And then a few details down here. Any insights on the vote? I was told the vote had already happened. Now, again, these are rumors, so we're not exactly sure, but this gives us some more detail. No kidding, do we have a consensus? According to Betting Bruiser, who says he has sources, but we don't necessarily know who they are, the vote was in favor of giving the policy in question a different interpretation. The TSX currently interpreted the meaning of illegal to laws strictly governed by the federal government. The TSX interpretation going forward was the meaning of illegal to be governed by state laws. Very similar to what the States Act pushed for in 2018. It's all about the interpretation. The CSE already interpreted the policy to give state law precedent over federal law. So it seems like we just need the board members of the TMX group to get together and decide that the TSX is going to interpret the policy to give state law precedent over federal law. It seems like that's really all that needs to happen, but that requires getting important people to sit into a room, getting them all together and voting on this and actually making the change happen. But we don't necessarily know. And then there's actually one thing I did want to add is that it seems like Dan Aarons down here actually has an account. Oops, considering a vote. Sources, but still just secondhand rumors and conjecture. Sorry if I overspoke. So it seems like this fix isn't that difficult. And if these rumors are true, then maybe this is an ongoing thing right now and it's been voted on, or it is going to be voted on. But regardless, this is good news because this would be an extra catalyst. Think of it as like a pre-safe to safe banking, allowing these MSOs that list on the CSE that might get a 1x volume onto the TSX, which might give them 10x volume. But then when they can uplist on the US exchanges, that'll give them 50x the volume. So try to think about it in that way. Good things to come. And lastly, this is a tweet from Michael Burry, who the movie The Big Short was based off of. Now, the tweet has since been deleted, but I found this link and I wanted to share it because I'm not here to judge Michael Burry. Apparently he's really weird on Twitter and I don't follow him. I don't really care. But if the man who saw the 2008 financial crash also sees what we're seeing and what I'm seeing, in my opinion, that reassures me as a long cannabis investor. And his tweet here saying, some stocks funds cannot own for now, maybe 1x book, 1x sales, growing fast, but pink sheets, federal laws, clients in certain jurisdictions, some cases there's path to funds gaining the ability to own such, knowing saves half the battle, capiche? And so, yeah, this is basically Michael Burry, in my view, identifying that he sees this opportunity of where there's, fast growing sales, and companies that are undervalued based on a lot of these factors, pink sheets, federal laws. Whole point is that Michael Burry sees what we see as investors. Our job is to try and find solid companies that are growing on the ground, that have undervalued valuations that we can get into before big U.S. institutions are going to get their money in there. So that is great news. On to some news from Forbes. As the legal cannabis market projected to rack up $43 billion by 2025, says the new study. Now, this actually refers to the study I mentioned on Wednesday, the Cannabis in the U.S. 2021 Mid-Year Market Update. I would recommend you grabbing that, but some details from this while we're on the page. The report finds that 141 million Americans, or 43% of the adult population, resides in 18 adult use states, representing a diverse and widely distributed consumer base for retailers to segment and target. And by 2025, 42% of the total annual U.S. cannabis demand is projected to be met by legal purchases in regulated marketplace. This is a 24% jump from 2020. So think about that. In 2020, last year, only 24% of cannabis sales in the U.S., which accounted for roughly $17.5 billion, came from legal sources. By 2025, they expect that to be 42%, which why we'll see that jump from 20 up to 40 billion in that range. And then when we hear CEOs anticipating this market to be 80 billion to 100 billion, if we're at less than 50% by 2025, eating up, a huge portion of that illicit market, but still only getting 42% of sales, there's a lot more room for growth in the future. This New Frontier data cites a surge in legal market spending, as well as the conversion of existing illicit market consumer spending to legal regulated sources as reason for the estimated increase in consumer demand. Because when you can go to the liquor store and buy things like that, you don't necessarily need to get moonshine from your neighbor anymore. It's the same thing. Cannabis is going to go the exact same way as alcohol. Another interesting finding, by 2025, 5.4 million Americans, or 2.4% of U.S. adults, will be registered patients in medical cannabis states. Think about that. Only 5.4 million Americans. How many Americans are taking prescription medication right now? I'm very curious. It's probably a disgusting number, and the amount of market share that cannabis can take from that, I'm excited to watch that in time. And as more states legalize and cannabis consumption increases, investor confidence has also grown. The study found that in May 2021, fundraising in the legal cannabis market more than tripled, amassing $6 billion. And great news as senators publicly pressure key chairman to vote on cannabis banking bill. The sponsors of a Senate bill to protect banks that service state legal cannabis businesses from being penalized by federal regulators are publicly urging a key chairman to put the legislation to a vote. That is a typo. In a letter sent to Senate Banking Committee Chairman Sherrod Brown on Thursday, Senators Jeff Merkley and Steve Daines urged a markup of their Secure and Fair Enforcement Safe Banking Act, arguing that it would help address an urgent public safety issue, which is true because there are still every day that SAFE does not pass, there are armed robberies by criminals trying to target these legal cannabis businesses because they can only deal in cash. This is not simply a matter of banking. The inability of these state legal entities to bank their significant cash reserves is an issue of public safety. It's ridiculous. This makes me so angry. And I'm just glad that they're writing a letter to this. But again, one of those reasons why SAFE should have gone a long time ago. They wrote, citing cases of robberies and armed burglaries at dispensaries in both of their home states. We owe this to our constituents to hold a markup on this bill and further the legislative process. The letter, which was also addressed to the panel's ranking member, Senator Pat Toomey, continues to foster success rather than gridlock. We believe this markup on S910 is necessary and should focus on policies with robust bipartisan support, which SAFE apparently does have robust bipartisan support. So what's notable about the letter, which comes 3 months after the bill's reintroduction, is that the sponsors feel it's necessary to communicate their request in such a public manner, which is definitely good, better than them doing it privately, perhaps signaling that Brown has been unresponsive to conventional behind-the-scenes requests among colleagues. And keep in mind, Sherrod Brown was saying, we're not going to pass SAFE until we get social equity established. But hey, guess what, Sherrod? You might not have known this in the past, but you can't have social equity without SAFE. So there's a good chance he's going to change his mind, and this is going to happen. There's lots of time. It's only June 20th. Consider this, the landmark for the rest of the year would be MSOs uplisting from the CSE to the TSX. That would be one big catalyst, but then also having SAFE pass, that would be another one. And, within a given year, a few big catalysts are very good to have, so we have a lot to look forward to still in this industry going forward. And move over Amazon, as GM is considering dropping pot testing to attract more workers. And the more corporations that can do this, the better, because it helps change the narrative. A new report from the Detroit Free Press says that the Detroit-based automaker is considering dropping the requirement that potential employees be tested for cannabis use. The consideration comes at a time when one of GM's most vital plants, which produces the Chevy Silverado, is struggling to find temporary workers for the summer. And as medical cannabis is legal in 36 states, while recreational use is legal in 16, including Michigan, where GM's Flint Assembly calls home. Imagine that double standard. You can drink alcohol, but you can't consume cannabis and then get a job in your state, but it's legal? Ridiculous. GM spot testing uses hair specimens, which can trace back for weeks. Welter told the publication that could turn off younger job applicants who then don't show up to an interview. Another issue making it difficult to attract workers is the $16.67 starting hourly wage in the union contract, which is on top of the new employee's temporary status. Applicants have to be flexible to work a variety of shifts with the possibility of one day being hired as a full-time employee. Sounds like it's a tough job for not a lot of pay, but regardless, if you gotta make money, do what you gotta do. And although you might be suffering as a new temporary employee, cannabis helps relieve the suffering, if better than any other substance we've found so far, going through a lot of the new studies, as well as the data. So great to at least see, though, more companies getting behind this and getting rid of that anti-cannabis policy that they've had for a very long time. On to some MSOs as Columbia Care announces US $74.5 million private placement offering of 6% secured convertible notes to 2025. And so from my general understanding of being self-taught, I'll try to decipher this as best as possible, although it's still a bit complicated for me. So if you get this, please comment below so that we can just help other viewers. But from my understanding, private placement means that it's coming from an individual investor and not brokered through an investment firm or through institutions. The other good thing is that these are convertible notes, which means it's a form of debt. So Columbia Care is not raising any more equity. If you are a current shareholder, your equity is not getting diluted, or your ownership is not getting diluted. What this is convertible notes, is that whoever is giving the private placement, they're giving the $74.5 million to Columbia Care to put it directly in their balance sheet. So it does not affect current equity common shareholders, which is great. And then lastly, an industry-leading 6% interest rate. This is lower than Green Thumb's 7%. And then Verano, I think, got interest rate at 12%. So it's great to see that the amount or the interest rate that lenders are giving to these companies is going down, which is making these lenders more confident that these companies are going to see the grow and that these lenders are going to get a return on their investment. It means that cost of capital is going down even further. On to Florida, the Office of Medical Cannabis Use for the week leading up to June 18th. We've seen patients go from 573 to 576. So Florida increased their patients by 3,200 this past week. And as we can see here, Fluent opened another store. Fluent is owned by Consortium, I believe, that one. And then Harvest, TrueLeaf, and TrueLeaf. So TrueLeaf opens up 2 more stores. Harvest opens up 2 more stores. TrueLeaf bought Harvest, therefore this is like TrueLeaf opening 4 more stores. So great progress again out of MSOs continuing to expand in Florida. And if we go down to look at the sales, we can see again sales are strong. TrueLeaf did not sell as many milligrams of THC as they did last week, so I would imagine that maybe was a one-time offering of some sort of high THC product that they made. But as we can see, the cannabis in form of smoking in ounces definitely sold more than a ton again. And nonetheless, every week I just want to see that these sales are high and continuing to stay high as they bring on more medical patients. And this just gets me excited again for what we can see out of Florida in 2022, 2023, 2024. While I'm on that note, just to highlight, like, round 1 of prohibition in the US was California. Round 2 of prohibition is going to be the East Coast, which is a smaller version of California, but New York, 20 million people, New Jersey, 8 million people, Connecticut, 3 million people. That's roughly a blocking grouping of 30 million, a market of 30 million people coming online in the coming years. And then the way I view it is round 3 of prohibition ending is going to be Florida and Texas, which is going to be like the wild, wild South, but it's going to be 21.5 million people in Florida and then 29 million people in Texas. That is going to be round 3 because it's going to be the biggest market, 50 million. And although far fewer people consume cannabis in Texas probably than in California. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe that's just what they portray based on the perception that it gives off, but still, all I'm saying is that try to think about it this way in the big picture, is that you can play this industry for the next coming years, because we saw California go first. Now we're seeing the East Coast, and then there's still going to be very big states with big markets to come. So if you can unwire yourself to want instant gratification and see the long-term outlook, there is lots to be excited about in this industry, as Cresco Labs also announces they've launched a social justice campaign on the 50th anniversary war on drugs. And this is another reason why I'm just very happy to own shares in Cresco, as they do make this a priority to try and give back to the communities that they are in. As Cresco announced the launch of a summer-long social justice campaign supported by its Sunnyside retail brand and flagship cannabis brand Cresco. Through community expungement events, employee volunteerism, a film documenting the impact of unjust prosecution, and financial contributions from the company and our third-party vendors, the Summer of Social Justice campaign aims to influence reform to help shape a future cannabis industry with limitless opportunities for everyone. The campaign will amplify the ongoing restorative justice, community, business incubator, and education and workforce development programming facilitated by the company's established SEED, Social Equity, and Education Development Initiative. On this 50th anniversary of the war on drugs, which is crazy to think that it's been 50 years since Nixon criminalized these substances, our country must take action to dismantle a system of over-policing and mass incarceration for cannabis offenses and continue cannabis reform efforts, says Charles Bachtell, CEO and co-founder of Cresco Labs. An incredible future for cannabis is in our hands. It's true, and that's the best part. We get to create the future. The past few years have displayed an unprecedented level of public and political support for positive change in this area, yet tens of thousands of people are arrested on an annual basis, and the vast majority of those arrested have been and continue to be from the Black and Indigenous people of color communities. So through September, the Summer of Social Justice campaign includes following programs: nationwide expungement events. Cresco Labs is partnering with community-based organizations to support expungement events through employee volunteerism and financial contributions in California, Arizona, New York, Michigan, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Florida, and Ohio. While the Cresco brand is driving awareness of these events through marketing communications. The second is The Sentence of Michael Thompson, a documentary. On Juneteenth, a trailer will debut for a new documentary short film about the story of Michigan's longest-serving nonviolent offender, granted clemency this past January. And think about it, Michigan had legalized adult use almost 2 years ago. Thompson was serving a 60-year sentence in Muskegon Correctional Facility in Michigan for selling 3 pounds of cannabis to a police informant in 1994. The documentary will be released this fall. The trailer is launching with a microsite sharing many ways cannabis companies and people can help release the 40,000 people, think about that, 40,000 people in prison, not jail, not county jails, in prisons for cannabis convictions. And then lastly, fundraising and petition drives. A portion of proceeds from the wholesale of Cresco branded products throughout the summer will go towards Cannabis Justice Initiative, a component of the Return to Freedom Project of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. The NADLC was created to facilitate clemency, compassionate release, expungement, and reform for those impacted by the war on drugs. And in addition, Cresco Labs is encouraging its third-party vendors to support this campaign through financial contributions that will go towards expungement, as Sunnyside will have in-store donations and a petition drive in partnership with the Last Prisoner Project at stores across the country. Another one of the biggest cannabis reform nonprofits in the U.S. So as an investor and as an individual, I'm beyond happy to have my money invested in these companies that are trying to change the status quo for the better, as opposed to just investing in the S&P and letting the companies that have driven us to where we are today continue to drive us in a direction of, strictly focusing on profits. Because at a point when there's abundance everywhere, we gotta ease off of the profits and just try to make sure we educate people and get everyone at least on a page where they can start advancing and getting to new levels themselves. And since that's the world I want to see and I want to live in, that's why I try to educate and give back through these videos too. So hey folks, good things to come ahead in cannabis. On to Canada, we've got an update as BC plans to allow private retailers to deliver products to consumers starting in July 15th. This is awesome, and all I can hope for is that this does eventually come to Ontario. But building on changes made in 2020 that allowed stores to sell products online for pickup, the newest announcement from the BC government means consumers will be able to purchase product online from a retailer and have it delivered to them directly. And this will cut out a lot of costs, especially in Ontario, where we have the OCS, which is the government middleman in between trying to facilitate this and losing money. Who loses money selling cannabis, selling drugs? No one does, unless you're a completely terrible entrepreneur. Anyways, off topic, but I just think that's funny. Since federal legalization of non-medical cannabis, we've been working to support a strong and diverse cannabis industry, shrink the illicit market, and keep products out of the hands of children and youth, says Mike Farnworth, Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General. Allowing direct delivery to consumers isn't just an advantage retailers have told us is vital to the viability of their sector. It's also a way we can further facilitate our public safety goals, and the changes in regard to security clearances for retailer store workers are said to help eliminate delays in hiring, which has been a common complaint from BC retailers. Government has consulted, listened, and really delivered, says Jacqueline Pehota, Executive Director, Association of Canadian Cannabis Retailers. I really hope this makes its way to Ontario. Knowing retailers can start hiring without delay and be ready to better meet customers' needs when delivering cannabis becomes an option is incredibly welcoming news. Adding convenient home delivery to the mix of knowledgeable staff and regulated product can only serve to make the legal cannabis sector the source of choice for more people. And I do 100% agree. This is great news, so hopefully this spreads across Canada. It's first to see it out of BC though, but it's always great to see someone do it first. And then I wanted to share this post from Reddit from Sneaked Up, which just highlights the importance of understanding what you're invested in, and I wanted to share this for any new investors who don't necessarily understand the mechanics of the market. These pullbacks should be nothing if you know what you're holding, which is why I'm recommending if you can think long term and you want to make money and you don't want to miss out on our generation's version of Apple, Amazon, or Microsoft, then you want to be holding and accumulating as much as possible. Because yes, although the price is going down overall, that does not mean that it's not being quietly accumulated. Because, in the past month, I've been buying shares and the prices have continued to go down. And obviously you can get mad at yourself and go, oh, I should have waited longer. I should have. At the same time, just don't, because know that in time the share prices are going to go back up. But regardless, I wanted to explain the mechanics a little bit. I don't necessarily know exactly this chart, but let's just say, for example, each one of these little squares represents a 5-minute block. And what happens in a 5-minute time period is that market makers, people that work at these firms who make the market, will be looking at the buyers and sellers, and they'll be matching and trying to decipher, okay, there are more buyers, more sellers, then we reflect the price going up, more sellers than buyers, we reflect it going down. All that to say is, in a day, there may be more sellers than buyers, and that will cause the share price to go down. But it doesn't mean there's no buyers. And so it's just important to understand that you should not be investing or make any sort of decision based on what someone else does or what someone else says. It has to be based on what you know about the company you're invested in, why you're holding, and how long you can hold out for, how much cash you have on hand. That's why it's so important to have cash. Saving money is tough because you want to go out there and spend it with people, but if you have cash on hand, that gives you time, right? And time in investing is the most important thing, as we saw earlier from Mark Eli saying. Time in the market is better than timing the market. That's why I don't try and actively trade. I'd rather just make my bet and wait, because I know time is on my side, because I have the cash to hold out. And all this I just wanted to add because I think it's very important insight to especially new investors who don't necessarily understand how this works. And then if you go down just to the comments, it's so funny. Not even quietly seems like. I feel it's obvious when you watch them daily. Long hold, they're not getting my shares. They're not getting my shares either. True, and they will definitely not be getting mine either. Quietly accumulated by whom? Not the majority, just me and my MSO homies. So you best believe, like, there are a lot of people out there that understand this too, and we're all just like, accumulate, because I think I've painted as best of a picture as I can with all these videos that this is happening, and the American people are voting with their dollars, right? So hopefully that gives some insight if you're nervous about the share prices going down, because of course, yes, they can drop further, but as we've seen, when US MSOs, or at least when cannabis share prices want to go up, they do it very quickly, and if you're not in when that happens, you're going to miss a large jump, and then getting in just becomes more risky the higher the prices end up going in turn, right? So just keep in mind, with this industry, you want to play the long game, and you want to make sure you have time on your side. And then before we go, just wanted to share this picture from dividend growth investor Peter Lynch's 25 golden rules for investing. This is a great little read through for anyone, especially new investors, but I wanted to read some very important ones that apply to the cannabis industry. Your investor's edge is not something you get from Wall Street experts. It's something you already have. You can outperform the experts if you use your edge by investing in companies or industries you already understand. I've enjoyed consuming cannabis for a long time. I decided that this industry was worthwhile learning about because not only would it help right the wrongs of the past war on drugs, but it was an industry being created from something out of nothing, literally overnight. So it's just like, that was sort of my interest and my expertise. I use that to my advantage, making this channel, staying invested, and hopefully growing this channel with you guys over time, right? So it's just the idea of take what you know and try and hold more truth to that than what other people know and what they're telling you is going to make you money in the quick short-term sort of thing. Number 15, in every industry, in every region in the country, the observant amateur can find great growth companies long before the professionals have discovered them. If MSOs are not a perfect example of that, I don't know what they are. 16, a stock market decline is as routine as a January blizzard in Colorado. If you are prepared, it can't hurt you. A decline is a great opportunity to pick up the bargain left behind by investors who are fleeing the storm in panic for whatever short-term needs they are doing those actions for. And I think that's a very, very important point to highlight. 16, nope, we just did that one. 17, everyone has the brain power to make money in stocks. Not everyone has the stomach. And the stomach is what you develop when you buy and hold over long periods of time and eventually see your thesis work out in the long run. That stomach is what you develop over that time, thinking like, oh, I'm not sure this is going to work. Oh, I could be wrong. What happens if I'm wrong? But all of my plan and my judgment says that I'm not wrong, so all I have to do is wait. And then when you wait and you're rewarded, then you're like, oh my gosh, this works. And it just helps you, facilitate that feedback loop and reinforce that over time. All that to say is, if individual companies are too risky for you, you can reduce that risk and get the same exposure with ETFs. Now, obviously, they're not going to grow as much as individual companies will, but you got to pick and choose your battles. And just wanted to say, though, that stomach comes with experience. So if you can, try to get through that, because it will teach you in time, if you're correct, that you're smarter and stronger than you think you are. And lastly, number 22, time is on your side when you own shares of superior companies. And I'm confident enough to say that I believe these MSOs, just based on how cheap their valuations are, based on what they're doing on the ground and what they're expecting to do in the coming years, and based on what we're going to see evolve in the US in terms of cannabis reform, I am happy to call these MSOs, at least confidently myself, call them superior companies. And you can afford to be patient. Even if you missed Walmart in the first 5 years, it was a great stock to own in the next 5 years. Time is against you when you own options. So the fact that we own common shares, we have time on our side. So I just want to use this and these videos as a reassurance that you are in a solid industry, and the best investors are the most patient ones that can hold out, not sell their winners, and really get rewarded in time when the trend changes. So that is it for this week's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know below if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the industry, because I'm getting more and more confident every week despite the share prices, and I ultimately just want to help reassure you that you are invested in a solid industry, and it seems like we're going to get safe before the comprehensive bill, and that could give us another whole 2022 with that comprehensive bill lingering around us. But regardless, what we can expect going forward in the next 6 months, potentially uplisting from the CSE to the TSX, safe banking coming out, and more positive earnings from these MSOs, it is again the right time to be getting into this industry. So that is it for this week's episode, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you on Wednesday for a midweek update.